Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be looking at 676 Apparitions of Killoffer. This is by the artist Killoffer out from Tippocrat. I saw this book on Domino Comics Instagram feed. They said they had got some of these in and, that order it now. And they showed some of the art from it. It's like, I gotta have that. And then I realized that Killoffer was one of the artists that worked on one of the 8 chunks of Infinity 8 with Louis Trondheim, I'm pretty sure. And I had really enjoyed that series, and the art that I saw from this I really enjoyed. So I had to order it. Thanks to Austin English for sending a couple other things along with this. I've done reviews of those as well. This is a big book. This is Abolition of Man #1, the new AI art book that Sean and I have put out through Living the Line. And you can see this is a standard comic book size. So this is a very large book. Really beautiful production on it, gorgeous art, really nice heavy kind of creamy paper on it. You can see how thick this is. I don't know what are these French, why do people do these French folds? Just give me a cover. This is even worse than a dust jacket. I don't know what that's about. That's my only complaint about the book. So this is a really intensely, I don't know how to put it. Like, this is about someone who's really hates themselves or hates a part of themselves and is struggling with that. I think it's definitely about Killoffer, by Killoffer, so I still think this is a pretty good portrait of what he looks like. And it starts with him coming home from somewhere and seeing that the mess that he's left in his sink has kind of just become its own biological experiment. And then the first half of the book, you're pretty much getting like some journaling that's saying, hey, I'm from Paris, I've gone to Montreal, Quebec, and enjoying the vacation, but worrying about the mess that I've left at home and what it's going to turn into. And then that kind of diary journaling aspect of that goes into some ruminations on the differences between the women in Paris and the women in Quebec. And then eventually, they're all the same. But it seems like he's out there, on a trip, but trying to have fun, trying to get laid, trying to get to know the women, but having a little bit trouble with the local culture, and then that's making it harder to approach women, and that he's figuring that out as he goes, but also being kind of self-critical of himself for being like a lecherous perv, which is interesting. I really like this sequence here where he goes into a supermarket and everyone's just got shit in their cart. So it's like you're just filling your cart full of useless shit. The book gets most interesting to me when that kind of journal dialogue goes away and the solipsism really kicks in about someone living in a different country. They're having a hard time making social connections, and then it's just them hanging out with themselves at home, and you start to get these silent pages where it's just a bunch of killoffers. It's like that scene in Being John Malkovich where he goes into his own head and it's just like Malkovich, Malkovich, Malkovich. I know this was released in 2005 originally, but it has that kind of what we all experienced during COVID about being stuck in a house with ourselves. And so I really love these scenes where there's just like he's naked, he's in different clothes, he's being lazy, he's getting work done, he's celebrating, he's doing the dishes. And the compositions on this are great. Like, there's this constant movement throughout the compositions that's absolutely fantastic. Here, I like this, that he's like undermining his own artwork. So he's doing artwork, there's all this stuff going on, but some version of himself has lost control and gone and drawn dicks into everyone's mouths and butts on the page, and he's just frustrated with himself, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go out and have a drink and go out and pick up some more women. And then that night just turns into absolute debauchery and self-hatred. Basically, that's like the arc of the book, and then he goes home. Spoiler alert. But there's some really just amazing art throughout here. I particularly like this scene where he goes out in public and he's not trying to pick up on women, and he's just reading them, and he's ignoring them, and that's where he gets all the interest. And that's a really well observed moment about human behavior. I think I've had a couple times where for an art project I've purposely been in public, in a setting where people are going to be tempted to engage with me because of what's going on, just the setting. But part of the performance that I was doing was to not engage with anyone. That's not all I was doing, But the few times that well, one time I did, I kind of purposely just sat there and didn't engage with people. And I've never gotten more interest in my life than when I was ignoring people. So that's really well observed to me, that like the fastest route to getting attention is to try really hard not to get attention or look like you don't want attention. That's a really well observed piece of human psychology. The book starts to get really brutal here, where he's either imagining or it does sexually assault someone, rape someone, and he's kind of watching it and goes in to like save and stop the situation, but is also there like urinating on somebody. And I mean, he really just goes into some dark places in his head, and then comes home and has this totally unhinged party with himself that like just gets so violent. I'm not even going to show some of it, but then you get this amazing compositions here in the aftermath of the party, and again this like compositions that all tie together, and the character just spills across it, but you never get lost. The art is amazing, and all the little details. I'm assuming this was drawn on a computer because there's so much where there's like these white lines over top of things, but I'm not sure. That could have been done with ink as well. But it's a gorgeous look. And then just the sophistication of this, basically two panels that are tied together. You can see them linked together here, but also using the room to separate off as panels, and it's just really sophisticated. And then you get like every character subtly reacting, like these guys on the couch waking up, these two stay passed out, but this character has like moved his arm as this other character shifts. This character's in the kitchen, this character's looking up, the characters in the bedroom are starting to wake up and move around, like his head's moved, this character's rolling over. So to take the time to redraw all that, all of this stuff has been rearranged a bit on the counter too, as the pot's brought over. I'm assuming a lot of this stuff, given that I think it's done on the computer, this is all just the same cut and paste, and then you move the characters around. But that's really, really sophisticated, thoughtful cartooning. There's a lot of other moments in here where just the mannerisms, the acting of what the characters are doing is really amazing as well. There's one I didn't want to show because it's pretty explicit, but like a guy like kind of just scratching himself and like noodling with his balls a little bit. It's all really, really, really well done. Just amazing cartooning. And then again, you have this like super violent attack on the self, and just spitting on all these aspects of yourself that you don't like, I assume is what that is. That's my big takeaway from the book. That really what this was all about is a month or whatever, however long it was, some trip to go live in another city, and that in that trip, too much time spent with the self led to too much self-reflection and too much hatred. And having spent 2 months in a foreign country myself, living in Berlin, and at least he's in a situation where he could still speak the language, living in a country where I didn't speak the language, there was something about the self-isolation there that by the end of 2 months, I was going pretty crazy, even though it was a really nice trip that was paid for. I had won an award, and it's something that everyone wishes they could have. By the end of it, the depression had kicked in, and the depression's even worse when you're experiencing something most people wanted. It was a prize that a lot of people wanted to win, and by the end of it, I was feeling depressed. So I was like feeling both depressed but also guilty. Like everyone wanted this opportunity, and I got it, and here I am feeling depressed. So this book has that same vibe to it for me. Someone really doing some deep self-reflection. It also reminds me quite a bit of a song by the rap artist Aesop Rock, where he's talking about going out on tour, and he gets a phone call from one of his neighbors that there's mushrooms growing in his car that's been sitting in his I think the song's called Just Another Tuesday, or at least that's one of the lyrics. But I would suggest everyone look up that song. It's really good. And his neighbor's calling him and saying, hey, I looked in your car. It's been sitting in your driveway for 2 months, or I went to start it for you like you asked me or whatever. But there's mushrooms growing on the floorboard. This has the same sense of this self-reflection about how disgusting this person feels about themselves. So I think this is an amazing book. I love the format. It's big, and I really can enjoy the art. And then the compositions throughout are just phenomenal. I really like the book the most once the writing goes away. I found some of the handwriting a little bit hard to read. A couple words I really had to struggle with. But you need that. You need it for the context. And once that goes away and it's just this wordless stuff, it's just a phenomenal piece of cartooning and comics. So I don't know how many of these are left out there. to get, but if you get yourself a copy, definitely do. And I'm gonna have to try and hunt down more work by Killoffer, because the Killoffer stuff in Infinity 8 was some of my favorite issues of that, and that this is a fantastic book as well. So if people have more knowledge about this artist and can point me to other books that I could track down, that would be much appreciated, because I absolutely love this book. So see if you can find yourself a copy. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, there's two ways to support us. One is through Patreon. We have a couple different tiers with some different contests and voting and stuff like that. Different things that you can win, and we really appreciate that. That money helps us buy the books that we review. And then for the mission of Living the Line, really the best thing to do is to help support what Sean is doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll take a look at a couple of books that Sean has put out that you can go purchase. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground, so they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. You know, what is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg and is very large for a manga, so that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival parade, and he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are, and we could not recommend this book more. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button